Welcome back to Midlife by Design. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and coach for midlife women, helping you shed the shoulds and remember who you came here to be. And if you are looking for a coach to help you navigate midlife and or perimenopause, book a midlife mapping call with me and let me help you figure out where you're stuck and how to get some clarity through your human design. Today's episode is a continuation of our exploration of the 4 transformations. So today we're talking about the second part of environment and all of the different places that help to support you in midlife and just in general. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, beautiful midlife maven. Welcome to the second part of the short series on environment in particular. So we're looking at the second arrow on your human design chart from the top on the left-hand side. And in last Monday's pod, which was episode 71, we talked about the environment arrow in particular and its specific direction, whether it was pointing right, meaning more flow, or left, meaning more structure, and how that actually pertains to where you are in the world and how you orient yourself. So today we're going to get into the specifics of the environment, the specific 6, it's called colors. So environment, I love this definition that I wanted to share with you, is it's about finding a place where your nervous system exhales and your energy just naturally flows. And remember that also when you're in the right environment, you are naturally far more supported than when you are not. And you find that things just naturally fall into place a lot more often when you're in the right environment. So today we're going to dive into the specifics of the places that support us and what are the features that can help us get into that alignment and help us to live our truth and help us to get the support that we need in order to thrive in this world. So one quick reminder that if you don't have your environment yet, you need your chart, go to my website, lorilisai.com, and go to get your chart. And you're gonna want to have the precise birth time for this part of your human design because it does change so frequently throughout the day. So for example, I was born at 10:53 and I have one right facing arrow and the other 3 are left. However, if I had been born at 10:35, then I would have all of my arrows facing left. I would be a quad left. So get your chart on my website, and we are looking at the left-hand side, the one on the bottom. So environment in human design is part of something called substructure. And without getting into the nitty-gritty details of that, I just want you to know that environment is at the level of color. It's called color. And so there are 6 different colors that have specific environments. Some of those environments are hardscapes and some of them are landscapes. So we're going to talk about each of the 6, and I want you to, the reason I'm giving you the color is because it has a number attached to it. So on my chart generator, it will tell you specifically in the details beside your chart what your environment is. And you can match that with the number by the arrows because I'm going to tell you what the environment, what number the environment corresponds to. So let's start with the first color, so number 1, and that is caves. And caves are all about safety. They're about retreat. They're about having control of who comes into your space. So if you think about being in a real cave, it's like you can see everything, right? That's going on. And you can kind of have your back to the wall and see the door, the only entrance in, and know what's going on in that cave. So the most supportive spaces for you and relationships, actually, I'm going to put a pin in this for just a second and go on a short tangent about relationships, because it's not just the spaces that you're in terms of your environment, but also the people around you who reflect these types of themes. So back to caves as an example, you are going to feel most supported in spaces and relationships that feel safe and secure to you, that bring you a sense of security. An interesting way to think about being in a caves environment or having this as part of your chart is that you want to protect your back. You want to be around people who have your back, so think about which friends have your back. Does your partner have your back? The environments are, I think, metaphorical as much as they are literal. So if you are thinking about spaces in your home or spaces where you spend a lot of time, how can you create a space that feels like a sanctuary? How can you, for example, if you have an office in your workspace, how can you create a little nook where it feels comfortable for you? You can see the door, you can see how people are coming in. How does that feel protective for you? How could you make your bedroom feel safe and secure and like, you're kind of burrowed in? How do you feel supported? And I want you to think about, as a person with caves environment, if this is you, hopefully you have a walk-in closet, but if you don't, that would be a priority for if you're doing any kind of renovation. So if this is something that you've been lobbying for and it hasn't happened yet, then have your partner listen to this podcast and just know how important it is for you as a caves person to have a big old closet that you can go into. Because if you think about it, what a beautiful space for a caves person. One door, one entrance, small space, cozy, comfortable, and you can very easily see what's happening, right? It's safe, it's secure. I also love to think about caves people when I think about the long bathroom breaks. So, my kids take long bathroom breaks, and I don't know about yours and my partner. And, I think part of it is just that separation and being able to get away. But for a caves person, having the bathroom time can be a beautiful way to establish some safety and security and just a break if necessary. So this is a great play at work. If you need some alone time, find the bathroom that is built for just one and close the door and spend a little time in there. So another space that would be super supportive for caves people is, of course, the basement. And if you could have a finished basement, which had like a cozy couch and maybe even a little propane fireplace, and I love a cozy weighted blanket for caves people, absolute heaven. And if you think about basements being in the earth, right? They are literally built into the earth. So what a great space. And if it was a walkout basement that you were able to see everything in front of you, another beautiful space for you to be as a caves person. I would not bring a caves person to a horror movie. I would not bring them to the haunted house. Spooks, jump scares, those kinds of things are really not good for caves people. They are going to dysregulate a caves person so much, and it's just not worth it. So if you are a caves person and you dislike these kinds of things, don't feel like you need to explain. I just want to validate that feeling for you and help you understand that this is part of the energy at play, where that's coming from. Okay, so that is a first color, a one-line number, caves. So let's transition and talk about markets, which is the second color. And the themes here, markets, are about exchange, about people watching, about connection. I'm podcasting here from Vermont, so we have lots of farmers markets, and it's such a beautiful thing here in Vermont, especially in the summer. And that ability to be in the space of so much connection and so much trading, people giving one thing in exchange for another. So you can think about other spaces like this that could be supportive for you, like craft fairs or co-working spaces. I would also recommend for you as a markets environment to think about the freshness of things in your environment as well as the people around you. So who in your, group of people, who in your loved ones, who in the people that you spend time with is bringing a fresh perspective? Who is keeping things fresh? Is your partner surprising you with things? Think about the space that you have. Do you keep fresh cut flowers, for example? And being aware and attuned to when things feel stale to you. That is a true indicator that it's time to refresh things. So being this way is just a natural part of how you operate. And I want you to feel, again, validated with this. I want you to feel like this is a baseline expectation. And being choosy or picky is kind of a classic calling card for markets people. And you can probably get a lot of flack for this. You have probably gotten a lot of flack for this. But listen, I don't want you to shy away from this tendency to be picky, to just know what is right for you. So, for example, if you have a markets kid or if you are a markets person yourself, then you're going to have a preference of where to sit at the table. Let your kid take shotgun if they want to take shotgun, if they're a markets kid. If you go out to dinner, for example, and you're with a bunch of friends, if you know the space that you're going to be most comfortable in, then claim it, take it, and don't take flack from your friends if they give you some. Just be like, it's me, I'm markets, like I got to have my space. This is where I'm meant to be. The other thing about markets is they will often have something specific that they focus on, like a niche, or they might collect things. And again, think about the proverbial farmer's market. Farmers showing up have a niche, like they're a vegetable farmer, or perhaps they are a dairy farmer. So think about, like, what are your specialties? What are the things that you really love to lean into? What are the things that you potentially love to collect? And how can you bring those into your space so you can see them regularly and celebrate them? They are supportive to you. I would also encourage you as a markets person to seek out spaces where energy is buzzing and people are trading ideas, trading things. Again, thinking about that market like a huge space where there's so much hubbub and there are sales and there are questions and there are oohs and ahs and beautiful variety. And just think about that general energy. That is the kind of energy that supports you. So how can you put yourself in spaces like that? And If you, especially as we're coming into midlife and you've maybe been in a relationship for a long time, even friendships that you've had for a long time, anything that is feeling stagnant, get out or change it up. Find a way to bring some freshness to it because that is going to be super supportive for you. And hey, you of the 6 different environments, when you're feeling stressed, you get to go shopping. Go shopping. It is the perfect stress reliever for you. All right, moving right along. Let's talk about the third color, which is kitchens. So number 3 is kitchens. And the main themes here for kitchens are creativity, alchemy, experimentation, and feeling centered. So think about a kitchen. A proverbial kitchen is like the space in the home where people come together and you're coming together to eat, yes, but also cook, right? You're cooking first. And it's this transformational space at its essence because the ingredients that you have to begin with become something different by the time you're finished with them. You're taking the pasta and the fresh basil and the pine nuts and the olive oil and the fresh Parmesan, and you're creating this fresh pesto by grinding and grating and chopping and mixing. And then you're cooking the pasta, which started as a harder form of itself. And then once it's boiled, it's much softer. And then you put them all together and they become something totally different than what they started as. And that creativity is at the core of a kitchen's environment type of person. So when you think about your relationships and the people who surround you, who brings out your creativity? Who helps you to feel centered? Who helps you to grow and transform? A lot of times people, when they learn about kitchens, they think of cities as like a great place to be. And a lot of kitchens people are very comfortable in cities for sure. However, I just want to say I am a kitchens person and I live in Vermont, which is not necessarily a very kitchens kind of place, you know, it's a tiny population. But I find that some of the places I love to spend time in are things like coffee shops or restaurants or just being in places where other people are creative, like theaters. So think about what kinds of spaces there are like that around you. And then another thing that kitchens people love to do is gather people together, which I can relate to this so deeply. It is something I love to do. And in fact, I do with my Midlife Magic membership, gathering midlife women together who want to practice with human design and want to use it in their lives. And gathering like-minded individuals together is just a natural thing for kitchens people, as well as something that supports you. I would also say, moving along with the metaphor of kitchens, is the idea of curation and curating your people with care. Just as you would choose careful ingredients to cook the dishes that you cook, think about the people that you surround yourself with. So creating together is a really supportive activity to do with people who are kitchens people. Think of yourself as like a master chef where you're working with the best ingredients in a kitchen that's full of staff who are coming together to then share a beautiful meal at the end of the shift. That's where you want to be. In that kind of space where your favorite people are coming together, they are encouraging your creativity, they are mirroring your creativity and participating in your creativity along with you. So spending time in coffee libraries, even where people are learning, and workshops, grocery stores, yoga classes, or the gym is a great kitchen's place, actually, because you think about transforming your body into something new. Kitchens people tend to like to check out the newest place. I know I love reading in the 7 days. They always have articles about the newest places to eat or whatever, and I keep little notes on my phone. Okay, new places that I want to check out to eat for restaurants or whatever. But you can also think about what are some of the other things that I like to do besides, eating. It doesn't always have to be around eating just because it's kitchens. What are some of the other creative types of things that you like to do? You could be in a theater. You could go to a place where, whatever, they're jamming on music. It could be a pottery studio. All of those are really beautiful spaces to be if you are a kitchen's environment. Okay, let's talk about fourth color, number 4, which is mountains. And the themes here are perspective, distance, clarity, and height. I mean, think about mountains is very much about height. So the first 3 environments that I just covered, the caves, the markets, and the kitchens, those are all called hardscapes. Mountains is the first of the landscapes. So 2 different types of environments. 1, 2, and 3, and then split 4, 5, and 6. So mountains is the first of the landscapes. And listen, if you're in midlife and you're questioning where you live and you're a mountains person and you're thinking, man, I live in a valley or I live on a shoreline and I sure would love to live in the hills, then maybe this is your invitation. Maybe this is something that you need to hear right now to get you out of where you're living right now, and an invitation for you to consider a different space. If you can't live in the hills, or it's not realistic right now for you to pick up and move, then I want you to just think about some of these hacks that I have for ways to kind of get around if you can't be living on a mountain or in a mountainous area. So these people, first of all, oftentimes love to get away. And if you think about a mountain as being, you're up on the mountain, caught on the anyway, you're up on the mountain and you're looking down over everybody else. It's this different perspective that feels removed from other things. So therefore, people with this environment tend to like to get away, tend to like to either go on vacation or even just have a space that's away from the hubbub of everyday life. So maybe you'll have a second home or a cabin or a lake house or something like that. As long as there's some mountains around it, then that is super helpful for you. These mountains people tend to have an elevated perspective and expectations. Their baseline tends to be more elevated than the average person. So you can also think of that literally in terms of the kinds of things that you use to support yourself around your house. So instead of having low chairs that sit at a dining room table, maybe have higher chairs that sit at a bar or a tall island. You were probably climbing trees when you were a kid or climbing mountains. Can you get up off of the ground level if you have a home that has more than one story? Make sure your bedroom is on the second story. Make sure that you, when you're spending time, you have time to spend on the second story or the third story. If you are booking a hotel room, book it up high so you can see. Like, don't stay on the first floor. Also, I would recommend that you surround yourself with plants and nature. Those kinds of things are going to be really supportive for you. If you're living in a city and mountains are not nearby, do you have a rooftop deck? Is there a space that you could trick out with some plants or whatever? Or can you just spend a lot of time out there? If you have your own home, can you spend time on your deck overlooking nature, where you have a wide expanse in front of you that you can look down over? When it comes to metaphorical thinking around the mountains perspective, again, that idea of heightened expectations, of, just taking the high road. So in relationships, not getting sucked into drama, not getting into the thick of it, but rather separating yourself in order to gain that clarity. Because what happens when mountains people get away, when mountains people get up high, they are able to come to more clarity. One of my sons is a mountains environment, and he's my mental projector. So for him, talking through things while he's on a hike or in the mountains somewhere away from other people is going to help him immensely in terms of making decisions. Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to mention here that's really important for mountains people has to do with oxygen intake, which is such an interesting concept. But again, when you think about mountains, the higher we go, the less oxygen we have access to, right? So mountains people tend to be able to thrive in situations or environments where there is less oxygen. So because of that, just thinking about how you can work with your breath can be really supportive. So an exercise like breath work can be really helpful for people with mountains environment. Okay, let's talk about color number 5, which is valleys. And valleys, if you think about it, opposite of mountains, valleys are the original place where I'm sitting on the porch in my swing and all of the horses and buggies are going by and I'm chatting them up as they're going by and we're connecting with one another and being connected to source, sound, and story are themes for valleys people. So if you are going to a hotel or staying somewhere, you want to be on the ground floor level. If you have your own home, put your bedroom on the ground floor level. You want to be where things begin, is basically the idea, that source kind of flavor. And so when you think about relationships, you want to be with people who you trust, who you feel are trusted sources for things. Like, can I trust what you are saying to me? And I want to feel like I'm in the know when I'm having conversations with you. So probably having a few different people where you're getting your information from would be really helpful for valleys people. And people who tend to share information like, hey, this just happened. Did you hear? That kind of thing. And, maybe just a caveat to watch when it could tip into gossip where it's not super helpful. That, that's not supportive for anybody, but more like I need to know the information that's happening in order for me to feel that grounded nature, to feel supported. So places that support you if you are a valleys person would be things like neighborhood cafes, your local cafe especially, or online communities that you feel really connected to. It could be a place like a mall that's local, because valleys people love people watching. So places where you can people watch are a beautiful way to support yourself. The other thing that is really important for valleys people is sound. So acoustics and thinking about the type of sound that surrounds you. So let's say at work. What is the sound at work? What types of sounds do you hear at work? And I would suggest investing in a really great pair of headphones if you are a valleys person, because if you are not enjoying the acoustics of your workspace and you have the opportunity to put on some noise canceling headphones, then those can really help you to then fill your head with the sounds that do feel good to you. I would also say that the sounds of your coworkers, your partner, the way they speak to you, those kinds of things are going to really resonate strongly with you as a values person. So if you're feeling like you're not supported, or if somebody's tone of voice is really bothering you, or it just hits you in the wrong ways, or it hits you and it feels uncomfortable, trust that, because you are very acoustically inclined. Another concept to consider for values people is openness. So when you think about that in terms of your environment and relationships, then thinking about how can you invite openness into those relationships. Maybe it's being around people who are open to new things or new information. Or it could be that you require a certain amount of openness in your relationship, in your partnerships even. Generally speaking, values people really thrive when there's an easy flow of information. And so another thing to note about this is if you are around people who are really tight-lipped or who don't want to talk or who are really reluctant to share information or share who they are with you, and then that kind of thing is really going to challenge you. So you want to try to avoid that and skew yourself more to that openness. Okay, and then the last color is color number 6, which these are shores people. Shores people for the 6th color. And the themes here are transition, being on the edge of two worlds or on the edge of something, a boundary, and having movement from one side to the other. So obviously, when we think about shores, the first thing you probably think of is like a lake shore or an ocean shore, and that is absolutely supportive for shores people. But it can also be metaphorical, like a career change or any sort of change where you're moving from one thing to another. So shores people may find that they go through more career changes than other types of environment people. The liminal space, the transitional space, is where shores people thrive. And I love this because I don't know. I feel like it's a really cool environment to have. I think that it's very interesting because you're poking at the outward edges of things. So think about transitional spaces in your home, like your entry room or your mud room. For us in Vermont, oftentimes, most people's mud rooms are filled with seasonal things. But I would encourage you, if you have a shores environment, that mudroom space or the foyer or whatever your entry space is into the home is beautiful. It is inviting. It feels comfortable and you like to be there. Another space that is wonderful for shores people would be a porch or a sunroom, where you're not really outside, but you're not really inside. It's neither here nor there, a little of both. That is very supportive for shores people. So I would also encourage shores people to bring nature inside as much as possible. Like have lots of plants around because again, you're doing that transition of spaces. You're bringing nature into your home. When it comes to your relationships, having some degree of flow without rigid definition, having some space to breathe and wonder, I think are super important for shores people. Boundaries and the idea of boundaries are significant for shores people. So how can you experiment with boundaries? What are the boundaries? And how can you see from both sides of that boundary? Another thing that I love for shores people is watching sunsets, watching sunrises, of course, like those wide open spaces where one thing meets another, like the ocean meets the horizon, the sun is hitting the mountains. Stargazing, where you're looking at the great frontier of space and looking at that as the next space. What a beautiful thing for you to spend time doing. Another thing, which may seem obvious for shores people, but get a boat. If you have always been wanting a boat, this is your big fat permission slip to get one, because floating on the water and traveling from one shore to another is such a supportive thing for shores people. So my partner is a shores environment and we have a boat. It is very much his boat. He loves the boat. He loves to just take the boat out and like hang out on the boat. Me personally, I prefer the boat party. I prefer when other people are there, but I'm that kitchens environment, right? Like I want to bring people together, everybody in their boat, and we're all hanging out together and chit-chatting and whatnot. But the boat is, it's a sacred space. It's such a beautiful space for 6 environments, which are shores people. So one last thing to say is that if you are feeling stuck or stressed as a shores environment, then permission slip to take a walk, even walking back and forth, like pacing, just taking a walk to see things from different perspectives, preferably along some kind of boundary line, or, I mean, man, if you can take a walk on the beach, perfection. Or you can go out on your boat, that's great too. But being able to see things from different points of view will really help you. And when I say points of view, I mean like literal spaces that you're in, and just thinking about the things from the different spaces that you're traveling to and from. Okay. So those are the 6 colors / environments in human design. And of course, you don't have to pull up your roots and move to the type of environment that supports you. There are lots of ways that you can bring elements of your environment into whatever space that you spend a lot of time in, and that it includes work or home, whether it be decorating a little nook for yourself if you're a caves environment, or going on vacation a little more often. These are some of the things that you can do to hack if you are unable to move. But it's also important to consider how your environment reflects in the people around you, and understanding what the expectations are for the people around you if you are of a certain kind of environment. So some things to ask yourself about your life right now and how it reflects your environment, if it does, is whether or not you feel really nourished and supported where you are and surrounded by the people who surround you. When you're spending a lot of time with those people, how do you feel? And do things feel like they are coming into alignment very easily for you? Because remember that midlife is not about forcing yourself anymore, right? It's the big fat fucking permission slip that we are always looking for, to just say, fuck it. I am living my truth. I am living according to who I actually am and what works for me. And it's time to shed the shoulds, right? What I always try to remind you about. So this is your permission to design your life where you feel at home, in your skin, in your space, surrounded by the people who actually support you. So 2 things I want to give you invitations to. One is the Perimenopause Energy Blueprint has a section of it that is focused on environment, and it gives you even more specific tools and hacks for working with your environment during the perimenopause phase. So during this midlife phase. And there's lots of other good things in there. So I will drop the link to that, but it is personalized and such a beautiful blueprint for midlife. And then the second thing is working one-on-one together to use human design to shed those shoulds, to start living your truth, to put these kinds of things that I'm teaching you about on the podcast into play in your life, and figuring out what's blocking you from doing this. If you're having trouble putting these things into motion in your life, then that's where I come in and help you get curious. I give you specific things to think about, what might be getting in the way, and how do you approach it with, I like to call it that 1 degree pivot. How do we make that 1 degree change and start turning the boat around so that you can start living in alignment with your truth and feeling like your true self? So next week's pod, I will be talking about the third in the 4 transformations, which is perspective, which is going to be the bottom right arrow in your chart. So make sure you tune in to that episode, and I would love to hear what your environment is. So if you're watching it on YouTube, then go ahead and drop it in the comments, and I would love to hear your experience of it. If you're a shores person, for example, are you living on a shore or are you landlocked, and what works for you? Or if you're a caves person, are you living in a basement apartment? I would love to hear these things. I love hearing from you so much. So that is it for me today. So until next time, lovelies, I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Midlife by Design. I hope that it gave you just the guidance you need to understand where you thrive and where you are most supported. Check out the links to the Perimenopause Energy Blueprint and the Midlife Mapping Call in the show notes. And as always, please send me a DM if you have any questions and or just to tell me about what is your environment. And as per usual, I am sending you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.